Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the first inaugural episode, the long-awaited podcast that none of you knew was even being planned for the better part of like 6 months. It is Squadzilla, where a bunch of fucking nerds talk about the greatest kaiju franchise of all time, the man himself, Godzilla.
Hell
I
yeah.
am Tom Oliver. There's the theme song that we will probably add it in post possibly and get copyright strict and get our channel destroyed.
Exactly.
So,
I had to add the roar. Fuck.
We should do it from now on. Whenever we are like welcome to Squad, so we're all of us gonna go. In the background.
Hopefully with better quality than that. But this is a learning process. This is episode 1, the first one. Do you want to just go around the table, introduce ourselves, and then jump into it? Is that how we want to do this?
I would love that.
Yeah.
Tom, start us off.
Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
Who are you?
All right.
Who are
My
you?
name is Tom Oliver.
I'm curious.
I know I've never met you guys before. Just a bunch of strangers just hit me up and said want to do a podcast, and so I was like, okay. You said Godzilla, and I was sold. It didn't matter. I've been a Godzilla fan my entire life. And what I do online right now is I make video games and 3D animations and do some other podcasts. Do podcasts with you guys. I do the POS podcast with you guys every now and then. And we've been friends for like the better part of a decade at this point, right? Like,
Yeah, almost a
been
decade.
fucking crazy. Doesn't feel like
years.
But, yeah, we've just been hanging out doing stuff. We're all kind of online internet people, and we just decided, hey, we're all big fans of Godzilla. The new movie dropped a couple months ago, and we were like, we gotta get the word out. We gotta let people know that they're sleeping on some great shit, because that movie didn't do very well in the box office.
Yeah, fucking.
It performed modestly. So the objective of this podcast, because I know we spoke about it before. By the way, my name is Saberspark. And what we want to do is I am like the Padawan learner. Tom and Jax here, they know their stuff. I've only seen a few of the Godzilla like movies from the franchise. I'm I'm very new to most of these films. So the objective of this podcast is each episode will be us discussing a particular movie from the franchise. And I believe we're going to go in chronological order of when it was released and work our way through. So this episode is going to be us breaking ice as far as like who we are, how we got into Godzilla, which Tom already hit on for himself a bit. And then we'll get into our discussion of the OG film that started it all, Godzilla 54. Yeah. So, Tom, is there anything else you want to discuss about your love and your passion for Godzilla?
Yeah, sure. I'll just do a quick recap. I've mentioned a couple times online, so if anybody knows who I am, they've probably heard the story. But for the uninitiated, my love of Godzilla started when I was like 5 years old. I got through it through my dad. He was a big Godzilla fan when he was growing up as a kid, and so we actually, before I even got into Godzilla, I watched Ultraman, the original Ultraman.
Yeah,
like a 60s tokusatsu show, like one of the granddaddies of tokusatsu. And we'd watch that. It was very kid friendly, like guy comes, saves the day, a transforming hero. And my dad was also at the time, because this was like 90, I want to say 94-ish probably. He was importing or getting like bootleg copies of the 90s Godzilla films that were coming out at the time, because there was a break after like I think like the mid 70s or like the late 70s. They stopped, and they stopped making films until the early 90s. And so he found out
80s too.
Yeah, so he found out that there were new movies coming out, and so I got interested, and we watched Godzilla versus King Ghidorah '95, which is going to take a while for us to get to. But that was like the first 90s Godzilla movie, the first one I ever saw. I fell in love with it, and ever since then, like me and him have just like, it's been one of our things, just watching the new Godzilla movies as they come out. We suffered through '98 together, and like we've slowly been building back up, like, trying to get America get its street cred back. But all the new films that come out, we're watching them together, and we went back and like went through the entire catalog. We've seen everything at this point. And yeah, it's just ever known for 25 years now. I've been a huge Godzilla fan. It's never faded.
Excellent.
Nice.
Jax, what about you?
Okay, so when I was a kid, it was very similar to Tom, but for me, it started with action figure, because like I remember as a kid, my friend had like this like giant lizard toy, and at first like my stupid ass thought it was Reptar, and I was like, what is that? Is that Reptar from? I was like, no, it's Godzilla. I was like, what's that? And then like I went and asked my mom, and then she showed me these movies because she loved them. Like what's funny is my mom loved Godzilla. She like
Really?
had all these, yeah, she freaking adored those movies and stuff like that. She talked about like when she was a kid she would go watch them and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, that's cool. So like because growing up in England, we had these VHS tapes, which sadly you can't watch on the American VCR, which is bullshit. But like, she got me like all these ones, and it was like various ones of like, okay, Godzilla versus Abira, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, and like Godzilla Destroy All Monsters, which was like my favorite for the longest time as a kid. That was like just so fucking hype. But like, I was like falling in love with the show, and then like I started learning about other things because in England there was this thing called like Monster Night where they would have basically all these different monster like movies playing. So they have like, you know, King Kong, the 80s King Kong, and then like Godzilla and then Gamera and all that stuff. So like I would like stay up and watch it, and I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. But and then like when I was watching it, I was just like, oh, these are just so freaking badass and awesome. So like I just fell in love with Godzilla. Then I started like watching them piece by piece, just like going down the line of just like this thing. Cause like back in the day, we didn't have like Wikipedia or something like that. So I had to like actually go look up like, okay, which Godzilla film first. Cause sometimes when I watched them, I felt like I watched them out of order. Cause I know for a fact I watched like fucking, what was it? Yeah, I watched. Oh yeah, I watched like I didn't see 1954 until I was like I want to say 8. Yeah, I didn't because I had seen a bunch of them. I think I started watching when I was like 6 or 5. Like that's when I started getting really into it. And oh yeah, I just fell in love with it. And then like my mom saw I was really into it, so she got me like the action figures. So like had Anguirus and freaking Mechagodzilla and Ghidorah, and all of a sudden I make them fight each other, and it was like so cool. And then like I remember being unreasonably hyped for the 98 Godzilla movie because I kept getting all these action figures for it. And I was just like, oh my god, this is gonna be so cool. Oh my freaking god. Oh freaking P. Diddy dude, music video. This is gonna be so hype. And then I was just like watching it. I was just like, even as a kid, I was just like, I mean, I sort of like Jurassic Park better. And why did he die that way? And it was because I was like, what the frick? But then the cartoon for that show came out, and I was just like, okay, all my action figures are validated. Like all my action figures for this show are like validated right now because this is that Godzilla. So I loved it. Like I watched the old Godzilla with Godzuki. I remember I watched the old 60 Godzilla cartoon, and when I saw Manila in the movie, I kept calling him Godzuki because it was just like, oh, it's Godzuki. Yeah, it's freaking right. Godzuki. Yeah, I kept saying that over and over. And then I think when I fell super in love with it is when I watched Godzilla versus Destroya, because when I watched that movie, like that shit made me cry like hard. It made me cry like super hard. And I was like, I love this franchise. I love this series. And then I've just been watching them ever since, you know? And then like when they had the new stuff come out, I was like, oh, fuck yeah, this is hype. Let's see how they do it. Cause yeah, like I've just been, you know, super, super into this series for so long. And then my mom loves it. My dad loves it. Oh, most of my family loves Godzilla. So it's just like a tradition in our house. So that's how I got started. And that's my little origin for it.
Excellent. So both of you grew up with the franchise. Like you've been watching it for years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Hell yeah, dude. Just been watching it, grinding it. Like all the cartoon stuff is just. I think I still have like VHS of when I used to record the cartoon when it used to come on TV because I love that cartoon that the '90s one with like freaking Zilla doing his thing because they made him like a boss in that show, and it's like
that
so
was
funny.
a good redemption because I remember watching that too, and I was like, why is this version of Godzilla superior to the movie one? It is like night and day. Those actual monsters and those monsters in that show looked pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, they did. Like the people in that show, like because they also did Extreme Ghostbusters and freaking the Men in Black cartoon. So like they always had like these really out there designs for their creatures. It was just like, oh shit, yeah, like they made those monsters feel like intimidating. Like the one that was like eating giant squids and stuff like that. Like that first video, I was like, oh, that's a good feeling. I like that. Like I like the design they did, and then how they even brought back like the original Zilla like as a monster. That was cool. I like the continuity they did with it.
So for myself, I knew Godzilla as a kid. I had some of the toys. I had Mechagodzilla, Godzilla himself, Ghidorah. I didn't really understand the significance of the franchise. I knew of it. I knew, oh yeah, Godzilla is a thing, and there are Godzilla movies. I never really cared to watch the films. I thought they looked silly and dumb, pointless. Where I guess it's a silly rubber suit. Who cares? Then, as time went on, I started to realize monsters are cool. I think what really started to make me reconsider this was when Pacific Rim came out. And I was like, oh, this is a really cool big monster punch 'em robots film. Then Godzilla 2014 came out. Disappointed. Still had some moments where it was like, okay, that was well done, but the rest of the movie, nah. And I think that was what kind of reignited my. Also, I liked that Godzilla's design. I thought it was a nice, like, more like brutal, not brutal, but it was a good makeover. I liked what they did with Godzilla 2014. So since then, that's where my passion for Godzilla has really rooted in. King of Monsters totally won me over. I'm like, this is so cool to see these giant creatures given proper makeovers on the big screen. Look terrifying. They look like they can move mountains, and I've been hooked ever since. I'll be real, guys. I'm surprised we're getting King Kong versus Godzilla. I hope it goes well. It's gonna be weird, but I guess that'll be an episode someday.
Yeah, when we cover King Kong versus the Godzilla, the original movie, so that'll be a fun episode to talk.
Oh, Lord.
That shit. I remember that movie made me so salty as a kid. I was like, this is bullshit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, before we even go further, because we said we're going to do every episode in chronological order. Saber, why don't we let everybody know going in what ones you've seen versus what you haven't?
Yes. So I have seen Godzilla 1954. I watched it twice. I watched it recently with you guys, and I also watched it with my girlfriend once. So I've seen that one. I've seen Godzilla. It was 98, right? The one where it was the
Zilla.
Yeah, Zilla. That was 98 or 99. One of those two.
98.
I've seen that. I've seen King of Monsters. I've seen 2014. I've seen parts of everything else. I've seen the Netflix series, which we will discuss about too. I think that's absolutely qualifies.
Do we have to?
We gotta the highs and the lows, dude. The highs.
Yeah, I guess. Fuck.
This is
never wanted to watch that again, but okay, let's do it.
Godzilla's one of the longest running franchises ever, and it's amazing to think of its like humble origin, where it's like just a guy in a rubber suit, not even a rubber suit, according to
cement suit.
Yeah,
it was like some other crazy stuff. I guess that can lead us into talking about the first movie if we're done with the preamble. We want to kind of dive into the topic.
Let's do it. Let's talk about the first movie, the one that started it all, Godzilla 1954.
Yeah, so 54 is an interesting film because it's so much. Like, it's not what you think of when you think of Godzilla, right? Because the film obviously wasn't made with the idea of let's make a franchise that's going to last like the better part of a century. You know, the idea was that they wanted to make a film that kind of talked about some of the stuff that was going on in Japan culturally at the time, dealing with, you know, the fallout of like the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombing, but also from what little I've researched about it, is there was also some issue with like radiation poisoning of like fisheries that they were doing over in Japan. Like the fishing industry was hit hard by like nuclear testing. So they decided to make a movie that kind of talked about these issues in a indirect way, and that's where Godzilla came from. And so it's a much more serious, somber movie that doesn't really have the cheese or the schlock aspect that a lot of the series kind of grew and kind of became famous for. It's a very like humbling movie about the dangers of nuclear power being kind of just let loose upon the world.
It's like, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, when it comes to the inspiration for films and movies and shows and comics or whatever, I'd say Godzilla's top 5. I mean, this was made by a people that bore witness to what is the most terrifying weapon in human history. Like, that kind of inspiration doesn't happen every day, thank God. So like, for them to take that like nightmarish like ordeal and the fallout of it and say, how can we tell our story on the big screen? Because when I watched 1954, you can just feel how like these people are still shaken up by what happened almost a decade ago, and how they still live in fear of it, like it could happen again. That was very well told. How symbolic Godzilla is for the atomic bomb.
Yeah. In fact, he's not like just a freaking superhero or a villain. He's just like a creature that's a force of nature that movie just shows up and it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna go knock shit over, poison shit. And it's just like, it's really actually terrifying because like what's funny in the way where it's like you barely see Godzilla in the first movie, like because of course like what Tom said earlier about the suit being made of cement and the dude fainting like nearly like every time you put it on. It actually works in that Jaws effect where the less you see the more powerful it is when it is, because like they keep showing all this like stuff. It's like, okay, we can't go to this area. Why? There's footprints and there's radiation everywhere. Though it's kind of weird that they're not wearing radiation suits, but it's the 50s. We're gonna let it slide. And then it's just like, oh, what is this creature? Like, what's going on here? And then they like talk about it. And like when you see him like show up and how powerful it is, like it still has a lot of power. Like people can say like, oh, it's just a dude in a funny suit. And it's just like, no, if you were actually like watching it and just for what it is at the time, especially at the time, it's just so powerful. Like, oh crap, how did they do this? And then there's like so many cool little editing tricks that they were able to pull off, like making like Godzilla look even more massive and making him more domineering. And I just thought that was like really, really great. Cause I remember as a kid, like I thought it was just, I remember as a kid at first, I was kind of a little brat about it because I was like, why does he look so weird in the face? Because I also used to other ones, but then like other Godzillas have weird faces too. But it was like, I didn't start to appreciate it until I became like a teenager. And then like as an adult, I can just like look at it and go like, this was actually like magnificent for what it did for its time.
Great.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the crazy things about the movie is like it's easy to look back at it and be like, this is so primitive, this is so silly. But
Mm.
a lot of the special like King Kong and stuff, like a lot of the special effects at the time were all done with stop motion. And stop
Mhm.
motion's animated at half the frame rate of
Yeah.
film. So all that animation is very choppy and stuff. And
Mhm.
since they used the suit, it ran at the full frame rate of the film reel, and so it looks a lot smoother. And I think it aged a lot more gracefully. Not to shit on the stop motion, of the
Mhm.
time,
You're
because
right,
it's really
though.
well
Yeah,
done.
you
But
did.
it helps it kind of maintain the streamline and kind of like the keeps your immersion going a little bit better just because everything's kind of moving at the same rate. And a lot of the shots are all shot at night, so the shadows really do a lot to kind of like increase its presence like dramatically, but also kind of they mask some of the fake things in the shadows, so it kind of blends in with the environment and stuff a little bit better.
Mhm.
The black and
It's
white works to perfection for this
It
movie.
Oh,
really does.
absolutely.
You
I
couldn't
would not
have
wanna
this in
watch this
color.
colorized. No,
No,
it
in
wouldn't.
black and
Yeah,
white.
same. I don't need it colorized either.
There are certain
No.
films that just work in black and white, especially if and it also like enhances the mood. And this movie, like, because I know that there's a time where it's like we have no choice, but like there are moments where it's up to the director and the people who are making these movies to go, can black and white enhance this? And for Godzilla, like tenfold it does.
There's
Mhm.
there's a scene that they don't have these kind of scenes in the other movies because they're trying to be more upbeat and everything, but there's a scene after his first attack where it's, like, really quiet and they're just going through a hospital and, like, the soundtrack is basically drowned out by everyone screaming and children crying because, like, everything is destroyed, and it's just such a subtle moment, but it's just because it's in black and white and it's just, like, this really stark, terrifying scene of just the aftermath of this devastating natural event basically, and it
Mhm.
really kind of just sells it so much better than if it was like in color and there's like bright whites and poppy colors and all that stuff. It really just oozes tonality in a way that color wouldn't have done it justice with, in my opinion.
Yeah, because it just makes it eerie. Like that black and white is very like ghosty and like very just like, oh my god, like this was a serious thing that happened. Because like another Godzilla movie, it's like there's always this feeling where they like get it, but this one actually captures that like that fear of just like, oh fuck, like you feel like if I was in that situation, I didn't this the way they're reacting to it is just like that's terrible, that's horrifying. Like it's just
Oh,
like I just on a boat minding my business, having fun with friends. Oh, there's a giant creature. I'm literally stuck here. I cannot move. Like I'm at the will of this beast, and it's just like such a encapsulating thing for you. To just be like, I don't know what to do. What the heck to do with this creature? And then the fact that like again, it works so well for being a man in a suit that like agree so much with like what Tom says because like I've rewatched King Kong and I do agree like some parts I do enjoy that movie still like don't get me wrong but like there are some parts where it's like this is really choppy right here like when he fights the giant anaconda and stuff like that and it's just like yeah this looks off it just doesn't feel right but with this movie it just feels like oh my god it's just amazing in my opinion.
real fast. And I'm not sure if you all know this off the top of your head, but who or which people are responsible for Godzilla? The company, if there are individuals who, or if there's a individual who is like,
Well, the IP is owned by Toho, and I'm pretty sure they've had it for the entirety of the series. I know Toho's in charge of it at least now. They've been in charge of it for fucking ever. In terms of who created Godzilla, I see here's the interesting thing, and this is the interesting thing where it's going to show the chinks in the armor of me understanding this franchise, is because I was a fan of it and got into it and was into it as a little kid, there was no internet. So like the vast majority of my love and interest in Godzilla came from a time when I couldn't just back search everything. So like there's a lot of like probably interesting Godzilla trivia that people who get into it now will know that I don't. Like all of my passion and stuff really comes from like an internal source. So I can't just rattle off names and stuff like that, because like I'm still into Godzilla now, but like of course I'm into like other things, and like, you know, like those like the newer kind of stuff that I've gotten into, newer media that's come out since, is the stuff that I will like wiki and get like much more familiar with. But Godzilla is not that. And there's kind of a part of me, and Jax, maybe you can identify with this. Like there's a part of me that appreciates the ambiguity. Like I kind of like don't like seeing the guy in the suit. I kind of like keeping it all in my mind, because I've growing up, I was never able to see behind the scenes pictures or footage of Godzilla being made. You know? So like it always had that degree of like childish realism in my mind, of like it was all real. And so, you know, 20 years later, being able to just Google Godzilla like production diary or whatever and
then see like the guy in the suit,
it's very jarring. And so like I almost don't want to start digging, just because I kind of appreciate the fact that there's this like this mythos that just kind of exists in a bubble because of the inability of technology for me to learn it.
What we'll do then is I will post on the screen right now. That way we can preserve our childlike ways. But like I respect that, because like, I mean, again, we do live in a day and age where if we want something, it can happen at the click of a button. Who directed this? Who did the screenplay? What company is this? Fifth or fourth film in their filmography? So it's amazing to think that there was a time, and it almost seems out of mind now, where we didn't know. Like I was told that Godzilla as a franchise in particular, where you kind of just went into a video store on a wing and a prayer, and you have no idea if there will be even a Godzilla movie in there to begin with.
Well, speaking to that too, is that like growing up, like buying the toys, because Trendmasters, they had like a whole huge line of Godzilla toys back in the mid 90s. The movies that these toys were based on didn't have wide releases in America. You know, I think like there was only a handful of them, like Godzilla Returns or Godzilla 1985 as it was released in the States. And I think Godzilla vs. Biollante I would find a couple times at at Blockbuster, but a lot of them weren't released here. And so you would get like Mechagodzilla, and like you'd be like, why does he look like this? This isn't what Mechagodzilla looks like. And you just wouldn't. Oh, there was another movie, and I found out a couple years later when we got the bootleg. It's like, oh, that's where this design comes from. Like, so it was just really, it was really weird. Even just thinking back now, like how did Trendmasters get that license, and why did they think it would do so well? If there was like you know, media now, of course, it's all about building franchises and stuff. So like you just it's all it's designed from the ground up. So like we're gonna have merchandise through this, we're gonna have tie-ins for this, we're gonna have video games for this. Like Trendmasters just got Godzilla and just thought it would sell some figures, and like there was really nothing to support it. It's very strange. It's a business model that doesn't happen anymore.
It is really odd though, like because I love the fact that you brought up the video store thing, because it's so true. Like sometimes you would see a Godzilla film, sometimes you wouldn't. Like it depended on the video store. Like I remember growing up, there was like a video store that used to go in with my dad, and then we would go get donuts, and I would like eat my donuts and drink some Sprite, and then like we would like go pick out a movie, and I was just like, oh, if they have a Godzilla film, that's really cool. But it's just most of the movies we owned ourselves. Like I had to go buy, or I didn't buy them, but my parents bought them, so I was able to like watch them in order. It wasn't like I was able to just go like, oh cool, go to the store and just be like, oh yeah, that's fucking awesome, you know, shit like that. So that is like, you brought up such a valid point there with like the action figures and how like they're able to take this and be like, okay, those would make some pretty boss figures and stuff like that, and then just, you know, start doing it like how they were and like make them like actually look pretty damn cool. So it's just that is so fascinating to me how that whole played out.
Real fast, just to bring it back to the movie, discuss Godzilla. And I'm sure we can go more into how they present on the big screen as far as like different shots and just how he commands the screen. What are your all's thoughts about the human actors, though?
In the first movie, actually, I liked most of them for the part because again, like I don't speak Japanese, but then I've seen the dub. But like, so I just gonna go off like the original Japanese one because I haven't watched the dub in like
Hold on a second, real fast, Jax. Is the dub for Godzilla the original like mouth not syncing up? Like, I'm gonna find Godzilla. Like,
oh yeah. They're like, oh, the classic dub or Godzilla. Like, you can watch like all these classic because I have them on VHS still. Like, there's that whole thing like, hey, it's Godzilla. I love it. That
like the original like missyncing or the weird like dubbing of Japanese movies. That is that Godzilla? Was Godzilla?
I don't think it was because like I think there were also some. No, actually, I don't 100% quote me on this because like I know there was a lot of martial arts films that did that, like, but I don't know if because Godzilla came out in 1954 and there are other, I don't know, I think those started getting like main prevalence around the 70s, like when Bruce Lee and all taken over the screen. So I'm not gonna like talk on my ass here.
I was just curious. Yeah. Sorry to derail you. Okay, so talking about the human actors, go ahead.
Oh no, the human actors, I thought like they played it very like organically for the most part. Like from when I was watching Japanese, like they play like, okay, look, there's this freaking giant dinosaur creature. It's poisonous. We have to, find a way to kill it. And then like, like, I mean, of course there's the dude with the eye patch, but it's just like, it is funny that there's like a dude with the eye patch, like I must destroy this monster. But like, besides that, I thought everything else was just like, oh, it makes sense why he lost his eye. All these characters are acting, just like how people would like, like go, if we fast forward really quickly to like, how Shin Godzilla, how everyone acted very realistically. It's like, that's how I think like this movie did. Like they acted like pretty realistically in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Shin Godzilla, which we'll get to way the fuck later, because one of the newest ones, is probably the closest the franchise has come to matching tone with this movie. It's because both of those movies, Godzilla is a force of nature. There's no other monster in there, and it's more about how people react to this situation and commenting on issues with politics and just society at the time. Both of these movies have the exact same goal. They're just talking about different issues because they're 70 years apart. I think the human acting in this was really good. I mean, a lot of the times, especially because I was a kid, I barely paid attention to the story of the movie because like I just was there to watch, guys in rubber suits punching each other. So I'm actually really interested in watching them all again because it's been a while since I've seen a lot of the Showa films, the 60s and 70s ones. So it'll be interesting to watch those with an adult mindset and kind of like digest the story in a more active manner. But the story in this is really good. I mean, it doesn't do like the American thing, especially they did in 2014, where it's like you follow one guy who's like just like the hero and like he's trying to do all this stuff. It's just like these are just normal people doing their best to deal with a situation that is really beyond any of their scope. My favorite thing thematically about this movie, and it's pretty obvious, but it's interesting to state anyway, so anyone who might not have seen it, is that everything they throw at Godzilla doesn't work. Like they try planes, they try tanks, they try guns, they try electricity, everything, and nothing works. The only thing that ends up killing Godzilla in the end is science fiction. It's something that doesn't exist, the oxygen destroyer. And that's like the message, right? It's like we've created a power that we don't have the ability to handle. And the only reason they probably even bring in the oxygen destroyer is because story-wise for the film, you want to have a positive resolution. But like in reality, if this happened in the real world, there is no oxygen destroyer. We're all fucked. And that's the point of the story. That's the theme, is that this power is uncontrollable.
A sense of helplessness, which is very weird, especially for like, okay, humanity after World War II. I mean, humanity for most of our history been able to take, most natural disasters on the chin. Even if we do bite it by the millions, it's like we can still bounce back. To face a force that is literally of nothing, no answers for it, and it's also moving and alive, and it can also like actually have a conscience of its own to say, hey, you in that general direction, you're dead. That's something, and that's something hard for us as humans, apex predators, we think that this is our planet, to have something that basically says fuck off,
Yeah.
that's hard to face. So
The fact that we're just parasites to it.
well, yeah, and I think it's interesting how, as we will go through the franchise, we'll see how these different movies, like our relationship of humanity with Godzilla, friends, foe, bystanders, but very much so in the first movie, we're on the receiving end, humans. And you're right, Tom. Like, everything we throw at him is worthless and useless, and it was only science fiction that solved it. So it's kind of a bit of a reminder, morbid reminder that like a day could come where just something shows up and we have no answer for it, and that's terrifying. That's truly terrifying.
Yeah, being helpless like that is like truly terrifying. I think that's like just like honestly. This is a thing like with a lot of like those kaiju movies, like we love to watch them and stuff like that, but it's just like if you're actually in the scenario, it's just like, this is horrifying. I don't know if I'm gonna get stepped on. I don't know if I'm gonna get fried. I don't know if I'm gonna die from radiation poisoning. I don't know what the fuck's going on. And then you experience the fear that all these people are going through, and the fact that like, oh, usually the military can come save the day. Oh, one tank shot to the heart, it's done. Boom. Oh, that shit didn't work. Okay, what do? Let's try our jets. Boom, don't work. But let's try this. Boom, doesn't work. And it's just like you keep feeling like, what can we do? And it's just like, okay, I'm facing my extinction. I don't know what the heck to do. And then the fact that they come up with this science fiction thing, like Tom said, is just like, it's a good way. Like, it's a good way for a happy ending. But then, like, you know, if you're someone like me who like always loves like contingencies and stuff like that for like movie things, it's just like, okay, but realistically, how the fuck would you get out? And it's just like, you can't. You just gotta like deal with what's going on, like unless like some like again like unless some science fiction thing like Pacific Rim happened, it's just, you know, you kind of fucked in the scenario. So it's terrifying to think about.
I want to give props, so to move away from like the meaning of the story, talk about utilizing models with a giant rubber suit and effectively like filming. Like I love it. I love how the folks who made this movie were able to go, how can we make Godzilla, this human actor in a suit, look big, by always filming up towards him or from a distance with mountains to kind of be dwarfed by his size, his giant footprints in the sand. I think my favorite scene of all in the entire movie is when the train hits his foot and the way it breaks on him and blows up. Like, there are some scenes in Godzilla 54 where I'm like, how'd they do that? And that was decades, almost a century ago at this point. Not really almost a century, but close to it.
We're creeping up on it.
We'll get there soon enough. But the way they made the movie was so good. It wasn't like some like, oh, they didn't know what they're doing. And it's like, no, they had an idea, or at least they discovered ideas as they were going along, and it worked quite well.
Yeah, I mean, there's one shot I even mentioned while we were watching the movie that I always really like every time I rewatch it. There's a part where they have a camera inside one of the miniatures, and it's stabilized so it doesn't move, and the suit actor steps on the building, crushes everything. There's no debris falls on the camera, but debris falls everywhere where you'd want it to, and then just walks away. And it goes from this interior shot of this building, which is a fake building, a small miniature building, and then as he walks by, you can see the rest of the cityscape outside of it in flames, destroyed. And it's such a gorgeous shot, and it's so well composed. But like, these are miniatures that had to be broken by just like real physics and just hope that everything was still shot and like cropped properly. It's not like they had a guy with a computer to be able to CG all the little pieces to fall exactly such. And like, it's so good.
I think the mark of a good artist is when someone can watch your work or see your work and they go, how'd you do that? And the fact that it's been, again, we're closing in on a century, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, how'd they do that? That's amazing. Like, and also just like a really smart shot, because it really shows you the terrifying, like, destructive power of Godzilla. He just stomped a building and just moving along, and everything else is on fire. The city burns. You're all helplessly just screwed. And just, man, good shot. That you're right, Tom. That was a good shot.
It was great,
amazing, Tom. It was.
So I'm trying to think of other things to discuss. I will say the human actors, as far as what I think of them, I thought they were all right. It's kind of hard to steal the show from Godzilla.
Yeah.
He was used, Godzilla himself, because Tom and Jordan, you both mentioned this, how he didn't really appear in the movie as often. Like the moments he showed up were very impactful, effective moments that really kind of took the movie by the helm and said, we're going this direction now. But like in the meanwhile, like seeing the human actors kind of run back and forth, ask, what is it? Is it even real? Is it folklore? Is it a scientific thing we can analyze? Oh, speaking of science, I thought it was hilarious the scenes when the fish in the tanks would turn to skeletons and the lady would go, ah!
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, the lady, in typical old movie fashion, the lady was there just to scream, like
and faint.
Yeah, that's
pretty much. Every time I rewatch that scene now, it just reminds me of freaking when Hogarth is watching that movie in The Iron Giant, and he's just like, let's go to my place. Oh, and then the woman's like screaming about the brain thing, and it's like he's just watching an old 50s horror movie. Like that's how I felt. Just like certain scenes like that, it just makes me laugh every time I see it. Just like, just like calm down.
It's really
over.
Yeah.
Something I think about a lot when I watch this movie. And there's just an aspect of it that I'm never going to be able to grasp, which is kind of unfortunate, is that like when I think about this movie, like when it came out in the context of its original release, because like we watch it now and it was not the first Godzilla movie any of us watched. So going into it, the slow, almost horror movie-esque buildup, like we know what's coming. It's like, it's Godzilla. I've seen him in a million movies. But like in the context, it's kind of like how when we first watch something like Cloverfield or something, like what is this creature? What is it like? And they're slowly building up to the reveal, and they're slowly feeding more clues. And like that aspect of the movie is almost lost on modern audiences because it's such a cultural icon now. You know, going in exactly what Godzilla is.
Yeah, exactly. It's like watching is anything like when you bring a character and make them a cultural icon. When you go back and watch like their first appearance, like the way they work, like for example, Terminator, right? Like when we think of Terminator, we think of him as like, oh, he like for the T-800, the one Arnold is. Like we think of him as just like, oh yeah, like that's Arnold, Hasta La Vista baby. Like he was helping Sarah Connor, he kills, but he's like killing mostly bad guys and stuff like that. But then you go back and watch the first movie, if you've seen T2 first, it's like you go and just like, oh, he's a bad, oh shit, oh wow, he's a monster. Yeah, and it's just like it's a bit of a like you said, culture shock, where it's like, oh my god, like I've already seen Godzilla like 50 times. What are you gonna do? And it's just like they're really trying to make him scary. And for the first audiences, it is like that could be terrifying. Like again, like it's just like just a monster showing up. Like if you were to show like a freaking 4-year-old that scene, he'd probably be scared of Godzilla. But if you show them like freaking Godzilla versus Megalon, he probably like, I want a Godzilla action figure, you know? Yeah. So it's just like
there are moments in cinema, you're absolutely right, where it's like nowadays we're so overexposed to trailers and posters, you have to deliberately avoid it, and even then that's difficult. But like there are those moments, so to see Godzilla rise from the ocean for the first time, go whoa, or see other moments in cinema like Vader and Luke, or the return of, like, you know, and compared T1 to T2 and how that definitely turned things around. So like that, I think it's okay. Once again, it's so fantastic that Godzilla took root when it did, because I feel like if it came out any later, it would have been more, I don't know, it probably wouldn't have had as much of a chance to make an impression. I think it came out at the perfect time to, and also, as you've all been saying, it made on a very serious note as well. It wasn't like Rubber Suit Guy slapping around, you know, Rubber Suit Guy 2 or whatever, or I don't even know if that even existed at the time. But it's like, no, these folks had a story to tell from a place of inspiration that was very, very like raw to them, and that was beautiful. Though I do want to highlight another part about this movie that became a common denominator leading on throughout the franchise, and to this day is still fantastic. It's the goddamn soundtrack.
Oh, fuck yeah. That soundtrack is just so iconic, so literally legendary. Like it just, when you hear that, like, like the build up to it, like it's such a great, powerful thing, because it gives you the feeling like something's coming, and I feel like whatever it is powerful. Like the way that music like hits like certain chords, just like what is coming right now. Like you can just hear it, and then when he appears, it's just, oh my god, and like my
I
ears.
think
Just
they
thinking
use
about it.
heavy brass though for the sounds, like the
Really?
bwomp, 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 bwomp. I have to double check, but like they knew their instruments and how to get an effect of like, because it didn't even necessarily sound like evil, like nefarious music. It's just more of a force of nature has arrived.
Right.
Yes.
I think that's what's so important about it, because like Godzilla is not a villain per se. There's no evil intent. It's just
Mm-mm.
a creature, and like the evil is humanity grasping at things it doesn't fully understand yet. That's the real
Right.
evil of the film. The
Mm-hmm.
creature's just an effect of that. And so
Mm-hmm.
the theme, it invokes a sense of power, but not evil intent. And I think that balance is very hard to do. Speaking of someone who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't fucking know anything about music, but I would just assume that's very hard to do. And the balance is done so well there. And I think the best thing you can say about the soundtrack is that it's still used in the modern films. Like the
Mm-hmm.
score,
Bear
like
McCreary
a ton of
nailed
them,
it.
a ton of those tracks from that movie are used throughout the entire series, even
Mm-hmm.
like 50 years later. In most of the Japanese movies, all this the themes from this original are in there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like fucking wild.
Tell me this.
Yeah.
And I know again this is off topic to another film, but like the chills that went down my back when I was in the D-Box experience watching King of Monsters,
Oh god, yeah.
and when Godzilla arrived at Boston, to hear that roar, and then to hear the dun 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 dun, dun, like that build up to it. It's like wow.
And the chairs were shaking along with it too. Cause
Oh, yeah.
D-Box is awesome, people. Like you should try D-Box if you haven't already.
That was a
Really
great
awesome.
experience as far as picking that movie for it, because like with every footstep you could feel the chair shake with Godzilla steps, and I'm like, that's
Exactly.
it. This is what I actually. Oh man, I can't wait to talk about that film. That's gonna be a very up and down kind of episode when we get to it. But
Yeah.
but yeah, the music. I mean, again, like you've got so many things that were these seeds that were planted in 1954 that to this day are like evergreen, where it's like, no, this is part of the franchise, endearingly so.
Right.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
much
exactly.
so much of Godzilla was established in the first movie and just never changed because it never needed to. The design
Mhm.
is pretty much the same. There's been obviously minor iterations and stuff, but aside from a certain movie that won't be named, the design has been very
Mhm.
consistent. And
That's
you know, the flame breath, you know, the glowing spines, there's like everything, like a lot of the iconography didn't grow as the series went on. It was all established right in the beginning, and a lot of the icons that came later were just like the rogues gallery and the other
Mhm.
monsters that are introduced, but like the foundation was all there and it never needed to be updated.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. They like are like, this is a perfect design. We got a perfect like outlet. Like again, like they change the design every now and then, but it's nothing like it's still like it's just it's what you said like in one of your videos, Tom, a while ago about like if you recognize them from their silhouette or something. Like I think because some you said something about like Goku's hair and the
Right, yeah.
silhouette. Yeah, like you can recognize Godzilla. Any form of Godzilla besides that one, you can recognize. Well, even that one, even though we'll just pretend it's a cartoon one. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, you can like recognize them just from like a shadow silhouette. Like it's just like that form, that spines, that just the way they walk, the way they move. It's just like it's so iconic now. It's just beautiful. Like they made a great design for that.
What do you think about as far as how, like, okay, so I know his design changes throughout the franchise, but there are core elements to it, because when you look at Godzilla, I mean, he's very much so based on the lumbering dinosaurs of old, the ones that are now debunked as far as like that was incorrect, because it's rare to see. I'm not rare. Like the dinosaurs back there were like the T-Rexes had big, massive legs, and they held their back and the tiny little arms close to their chest and held their head high. Now it's more like a bird where it leans out. But what do y'all think about how his design, where it started and how it's evolved?
Yeah, it's just like to me personally, it's like I like I first off I like his design. Now I'll say like this, like we'll talk about it more when we get to it. Like it's not my favorite Godzilla design, especially since it's the first one. It looks like a bit clunky. Like I love this movie and I'll like give it all the praise in the world, but like again, like for the time, it like Godzilla does look a bit clunky and a bit like awkward at times, but it works. It works for what the time was given. like design wise, I thought they did, pretty good at just making a creature that's very recognizable, like I said earlier. And I like it. I like it. Like again, my favorite designs are like probably 90s and Final Wars. Like I just love those designs for Godzilla. But like this one I thought was like a great start in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, this is like we were talking earlier about the benefits of the guy in the suit kind of mentality for going forward with the special effect is that it keeps up with the frame rate and stuff like that. The drawback, of course, is that you got to fit a guy in there somehow, and that means that you have to basically have a human bipedal anatomical structure for everything you do, unless you really, really, really want to go out there. And if you watch even modern, tokusatsu like Kamen Rider and Sentai and all the rest, all the creature designs in those shows are still basically humanoid because they're guys in the suit and they just throw a bunch of accessories on top of there to try and mask it as best as they can. And so when you look at Godzilla, it's very clear that like it was designed to be how much lizard can we put on a guy, because like at the end of the day it has to be a guy lumbering around in the suit. And I think it was probably closer to what at the time you would identify as a dinosaur because they were more kind of bipedal standing upwards, that kind of idea of what we thought dinosaurs were. So it probably looked much more accurate to the concept at the time. But I think it works, and I think they really lean into it a lot going into the Showa series where they make Godzilla more of a character, like having him be humanoid and letting him be able to do human things. Like Godzilla boxes and punches guys later on.
Does a kicking move,
and it would be kind of weird. Kind of weird to have like a realistic lizard throwing jabs and stuff. So like,
I feel so bad for the Anguirus guy then. Just like...
well, he's just on all fours crawling around and shit. Like that's the whole thing. It's like you've got to make compromises with that technology, quote unquote. And
I can't. You know what? I can't wait for this. Like, because I don't know if I've ever seen that. Whatever. Like we'll get to it when we get to it. Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I mean, the design's iconic. It just works. And it's like, it's a great point with the silhouette. You look at Godzilla's silhouette, no matter what incarnation of it, and you just clearly, you understand what it is. They created, and it's a simple design. It's not too crazy, It's like they took a Tyrannosaurus Rex, they changed the proportions to fit a suit actor and threw some fins on the back to give him more of an aquatic coming from the water kind of aesthetic. And that was it. But that's all you need. Because like, what captures a child's imagination more than a T-Rex?
It shoots fire from his mouth.
Exactly. It's just it just captures the imagination. And so they just ran with it.
How like they running with it, they're like, we'll make his spines look cooler. We'll give him a different face. We'll give him a different colored breath. We'll enhance how he grows. But like when I rewatched 54 with you guys and with my girlfriend, for some reason I thought Godzilla's spines on his back, his dorsal fins or whatever, I thought they wouldn't look as like profound as they did. I thought it'd be more like a couple of lumps, but it's like no, they look pretty defined. That was a pleasant surprise to know that even back in the first movie, those spines were kicking around and even glowed. That surprised me when they glowed. I was like, whoa, like that's awesome.
Yeah, so cool that they had that.
All of the stuff was there. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild how they just, because a lot of series change and grow over time. But like, Godzilla obviously is no exception. But so much of the iconography was there from the very beginning. It's really cool.
Well, is there anything else you all, because we're in closing here on an hour, is there anything else y'all want to discuss about the movie itself, or do y'all feel like we've kind of said our piece about it?
All I can say right now is just that I think like it is such an iconic film that like hit like at a point when Japan needed it, and they made like such a iconic character with such beautiful like music and scores. So it's very powerful to watch it. Like again, like if you're like a freaking like smarmy person, you'd be like, oh, it looks like fake here. But like again, if you just appreciate like Godzilla and you go back and watch this, like as a genuine fan, like you definitely enjoy this entire film. Like it was like fun to rewatch.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I would recommend to anybody who might have seen the movie. It is entirely different to watch the sub than the dub, because the dub version
it really is.
Because it's not only that they it's dubbed, it's that they add a ton of extra scenes. They add Raymond Burr in. There's a bunch of new shots. A lot of the shots are actually out of order in the dub to change the story to have it work better with Raymond Burr in it. because he's like a
Right.
reporter reporting on everything. And so a lot of new shots are injected to change the story, and like all the main characters in the Japanese version are kind of secondary, and Raymond Burr just magically knows everybody, and it's just it's not bad, because I think like a movie like this would be hard to receive in the States, you know, especially considering we're the one that did the deed. So I think that's probably the big reason why they changed a lot of the stuff to make it more
Right.
approachable to Western audiences. But if you've only seen the dub, definitely worth checking out the subtitled version, and because it's a different experience for sure.
It is.
All right, guys. So, are there any other things you all want to add to this episode before we move on to closing things out?
I think we're good.
I think we're good.
All right,
Yeah.
gentlemen. I need to ask then, what is our next film?
Next up on the docket is Godzilla Raids Again, which is
Yes.
the first introduction of a new monster, is where that kind of whole dynamic starts, is in Godzilla Raids Again.
No kidding. It's that soon where another monster shows up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Word. And I'm going to take a guess. It's Anguirus, right?
Anguirus is the
Yes.
next one.
Oh, my
And
God.
so you
Here we go.
haven't seen this one before, right? So this is going to be
I
a
have
whole
not.
new-
Oh, this is
Alright.
gonna be fun then. Yeah, this is gonna be a good one.
I look forward to seeing it. All right, guys. You want to plug anything before we go?
Subscribe to my YouTube channel, JaxBlade. I'll make you super. Just saying. Boom.
Follow me on Twitter. I'm doing a bunch of low poly 3D art and working on a video game and a bunch of other cool art stuff. Check it out. It's good. I promise.
I have a channel where I review stuff, and all the links for all of our respective things will be in the description. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Oh, we didn't even say it. His voice is a baseball glove being run down a cello. How cool is that?
That's fucking amazing. It's
Dude, I gotta
fucking-
get a cello and a baseball glove for the next
Yeah,
episode.
dude. You get the cello. I'll bring the glove.
All right.
Iconic. Iconic. All right, bye.
Bye.